The 2 a.m. proclamation and your future. Good morning, America. While most of the country was tucked away in sleep, a digital notification at 2 a.m. sent shockwaves through the quiet streets of every retirement community from Florida to Arizona. President Trump has officially doubled down on a promise that could define your 2026, a $2,000 tariff dividend. For those of you who have spent your lives building this nation, paying your dues, and now navigating the choppy waters of a fixed income, this isn't just a political headline. It feels like a potential answer to the silent prayers whispered over rising grocery receipts. But as the news cycle spins, many of you are asking, is this real? Or is it another Washington mirage? Tonight, we aren't just reading the news, we are investigating the facts for you. We'll look at the billions collected from foreign competitors and why the administration thinks that money belongs in your pocket. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the hurdles standing in the way of your check. Stay tuned because the rules of eligibility are more complicated than they first appear. The high income mystery, where do you stand? One of the biggest concerns for any senior is the fine print. In his 2 a.m. post, President Trump was clear about one thing. This money is for you, but it is not for the wealthy. But in a town like Washington, who gets to decide what high income means? For a senior living on a hard-earned pension or Social Security, $100,000 might sound like a fortune, but for others, it's just getting by. Experts at Yale's Budget Lab are currently crunching the numbers, suggesting that the cutoff for this $2,000 boost might be set at an adjusted gross income of $100,000. If you earn a dollar more, does the dividend disappear? This income cliff is a source of great anxiety. We're digging into whether your retirement distributions, the money you worked 40 years to save, could actually disqualify you from receiving this relief. It's a question of fairness, and it's a question we are demanding answers to. The ghost of COVID stimulus, learning from the past. Do you remember the economic impact payments during the pandemic? For many, those checks were the only thing that kept the lights on. As we look at the current tariff dividend proposal, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget is looking back at those COVID-era rules to predict your future. Back then, the phase-out began at $75,000 for individuals. If the new plan follows that roadmap, many of you sitting in the middle might see your dividend shrink before it even arrives. The president's vision is to make this progressive, meaning it's designed to help those who feel the sting of inflation the most. But the worry remains. Will the systems used by the IRS be updated enough to recognize your current needs, or will they use outdated tax returns from years ago? We are looking for clarity on which tax year will determine your eligibility, because for a senior, a lot can change in 12 months. The 2026 countdown, when will the mailbox rattle? The question we hear most often is simple: when? We know that bills don't wait for politicians to finish their debates. Initially, the White House suggested that these checks could be in your hands by mid-2026. However, in a recent interview, President Trump seemed to hit the pause button, suggesting that the timeline might slide toward the end of the year. Why the delay? It's a process that usually takes about 20 weeks from the moment a law is signed to the moment the funds hit your bank account. For those of you counting down the days until you can afford that new appliance or a trip to see the grandkids, this wait feels like an eternity. We are tracking every move of the Treasury Department to see if they are streamlining the process or if the bureaucracy is winning the tug-of-war against your relief. The congressional wall, can they block your money? You've seen the gridlock in Washington. You lived through the record-breaking 43-day government shutdown just recently. Now, that same divided Congress holds the keys to your $2,000 dividend. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been clear. The president cannot just snap his fingers and send you cash. Congress must authorize the spending. This is where the anxiety sets in for many seniors. Will your representatives put their partisan bickering aside to help the people who voted them into office? There is talk of alternative funding sources that would allow the White House to bypass the Capitol, but those details are currently as thin as a New York City newspaper in the 1930s. We are keeping a congressional heat map to show you exactly which politicians are trying to stand between you and your tariff dividend. The Supreme Court gamble? A constitutional crisis? While you're watching your mailbox, 9 people in robes are watching the law. The Supreme Court is currently weighing a case that could make or break this entire plan. The tariffs that are supposed to fund your dividend were enacted under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. IEEPA. But the justices are asking, did the president overstep? If the court rules that these tariffs were illegal, the government wouldn't just have to stop collecting them. They might have to refund billions back to the big corporations. Imagine that, the money meant for your table going back into the vaults of overseas importers. This is the constitutional gamble that has the administration looking for leverage. We'll explain what emergency powers mean for your wallet in the next segment. The grocery store anxiety. Why $2,000 matters. Let's talk about the milk and eggs reality. You've noticed it every time you walk into the supermarket. Even as inflation reports claim things are muted, your eyes don't lie when they see the price tags. The Yale Budget Lab predicts that a one-time payment of $2,000 would have a very small impact on overall inflation, less than 0.1%. This is vital information because it debunks the fear that giving you this money will just make prices go up even further. It's considered a windfall, a one-time boost that rewards your years of hard work without breaking the economy. For a senior on a fixed budget, $2,000 isn't extra money. It's the difference between a winter with the heater on and a winter with an extra blanket. We are advocating for you by showing Washington that for you, 0.1% inflation is a statistic, but $2,000 is a lifeline. Scam alert, protecting your digital doorstep. Warning, the vultures are circling. As soon as the 2 a.m. announcement hit the airwaves, scammers began drafting fake texts and emails. They know you are waiting. They know you are hopeful. They might tell you to click here to claim your Trump dividend or ask for your Social Security number to verify your eligibility. Please listen closely. No government agency will ever text you to ask for your banking info. Any legitimate update will come through official channels like the IRS or the Treasury. We've seen these criminals target our seniors before, and we won't let them do it again. If you receive a suspicious call, hang up. If you see a processing fee for your dividend, it's a lie. We will continue to provide you with the official links and phone numbers so you can stay safe while you stay informed. The $600 billion math, where is the money? Let's look at the checkbook. President Trump says we are taking in hundreds of billions from tariffs, and he's right. About $200 billion was collected in 2025. But here is the catch that the politicians don't always mention. Sending $2,000 to every eligible American could cost between $450 billion and $600 billion. Do you see the gap? The math doesn't quite add up yet. To pay you the full dividend, the government might have to borrow more money, adding to that staggering $38 trillion national debt. Some experts say the only way to make it work is to pay the dividend every other year instead of every year. We are tracking the Treasury's ledger to see if they are finding real savings or just moving numbers around on a page. Social Security versus the dividend, the dignity gap. For nearly 90 years, Social Security has been a rock-solid guarantee. But let's be honest, in 2026, is that guarantee enough to retire with dignity? The 2025 budget promised no benefit cuts, but it also asked the highest earners to pay more into the system. The tariff dividend is being framed as a separate reward, a pro-American worker bonus that recognizes your contribution to the economy. But some in Washington are worried that if the government starts handing out dividends, they might use it as an excuse to ignore the long-term needs of the Social Security Trust Fund. You've worked your whole life. You shouldn't have to choose between a one-time check and a lifetime of security. We are questioning the Social Security Administration on how these two programs will interact, and we'll bring you those answers as soon as they arrive. The global shadow. Why your check is a target. Why is the rest of the world so upset about your $2,000 check? The 2025 Annual Threat Assessment notes that adversaries like China view our tariff policies as a direct threat to their economic power. By taking tariff revenue and giving it to you, the United States is essentially rebalancing the scales that were tipped against the American middle class for decades. But be aware, foreign influence operations are actively trying to spread disinformation to make you doubt this plan. They want you to believe the money isn't coming so that you stop supporting the tariffs. They want to sow division and societal panic to weaken our resolve. Your optimism is a tool of national security. Don't let foreign propaganda dictate how you feel about your country's future. Healthcare and the dividend. A winning combination? Imagine combining your $2,000 dividend with the new Medicare rules. The 2025 budget officially capped out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 a year for seniors. If you receive this dividend, your entire year of life-saving prescriptions could effectively be prepaid by foreign tariffs. This is the new golden age vision the administration is promoting, where healthcare isn't a burden that keeps you awake at night. From insulin caps at $35 to the new TrumpRx.gov portal, the goal is clear: lower costs and more cash in your pocket. But will these programs survive the legal battles in the Supreme Court? We're watching the bench to see if they will protect these vital senior protections or strike them down in the name of limited government. The Trump corollary: reclaiming our neighborhood. You might wonder why tariffs on a country halfway around the world affect your life in the U.S. It's part of what the White House calls the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. The strategy is to restore American preeminence in our own hemisphere, stopping the flow of drugs like fentanyl and ending the era of mass migration that strains our resources. By using tariffs to move manufacturing back to the Americas, nearshoring, the administration hopes to create a stable neighborhood that supports our economy rather than draining it. For you, this means safer communities and a more resilient supply chain. No more wondering if your heart medication or your car parts will be stuck in an overseas port. It's about independence, and the tariff dividend is the first piece of that puzzle reaching your front door. The logistics of hope: how to prepare. While the politicians fight, what should you do? First, check your most recent tax return. Look at your adjusted gross income. If it's under that $100,000 mark, you are in the primary target group for this dividend. Second, keep a close eye on the news regarding the Consolidated Appropriations Act. That's the bill that would actually put the money in the mail. We know the 43-day shutdown was a teaching moment for everyone. It showed that nothing in D.C. is easy, but there is a silver lining. Private investments are surging and the stock market is hitting record highs. This economic tailwind might be the pressure needed to force Congress to act. We'll provide a checklist of documents you might need to ensure your check isn't delayed by a simple paperwork error. Final word: your seat at the table. As we wrap up our 15-part deep dive into the 2 a.m. tariff dividend, let's remember the big picture. This isn't just about $2,000. It's about a fundamental shift in how America treats its most loyal citizens. The national security strategy states that we want an America that cherishes its heroes and ensures no one is sitting on the sidelines. You built this country. You raised the families that populate it today. Whether the check arrives in mid-2026 or at the year's end, the message from the White House is that your needs are finally at the center of the debate. We will stay on this story every single day. We will alert you the moment the first check is mailed and the moment the Supreme Court gives its final word. Sleep well, America. Your contribution hasn't been forgotten and your relief is on the horizon. I'm your name, and this is the news you can count on.